He took everything. The last 19 years have been exhausting. Birthdays, graduations, weddings, pregnancies, births, and grandchildren are just a very small portion of what my mom has missed out on.
Today, I sit here responsible for their deaths, taking the burden of that responsibility.
May 14th, 2026, McAlester, Oklahoma. At 10 o'clock in the morning, the state of Oklahoma executed a man who spent nearly 2 decades on death row for one of the most savage crimes in Tulsa's history. His name was Raymond Eugene Johnson, 52 years old, convicted killer. At 10:12 in the morning, he was pronounced dead. But this story does not start with a needle. It starts with a hammer, a claw hammer swung 6 times at a woman's skull, a gas can dragged from a backyard shed, a mother, bleeding, broken, barely alive, begging a man to spare her baby's life, and a 7-month-old girl sleeping in her crib who never had a chance. Raymond Johnson died by lethal injection at Oklahoma State Penitentiary. But before the needle, there is a story so brutal, so calculated, that what you are about to hear will make you question how this man walked free at all. Because here is what you need to know. Johnson had done this before. In 1995, he killed a man. He pleaded guilty to manslaughter and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He served only 10, and within months of walking out of those prison gates, he found his next victim. On April 8, 2026, the Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board voted 5-0 to deny him clemency. No mercy, no second chances. Strapped to a gurney in the death chamber, Johnson spoke his final words to the family of the woman and baby he had murdered. What he said, and what one family member said after it was all over, will stay with you. This is the story of Brooke Whitaker, baby Kaya, and the man the state of Oklahoma said must die. Before we begin, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to this channel. Because what happens next is impossible to believe. Before we talk about what Raymond Johnson did, we need to talk about who he did it to. Brooke Nicole Whitaker was 24 years old. She lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and by every account from the people who loved her, she was the kind of person who made every room feel warmer just by walking into it. Her family called her Brookie Cookie. Her aunt, Angie Short, described her simply and powerfully at the clemency board hearing. Brooke was just a loving, sweet girl. She laughed so hard she would cry. She hugged so tight it would hurt. That was Brooke. She was also a mother, a devoted, hard-working, single mother of 4 children. At the time of her death, her oldest was 7 years old, then 5, then 3. And then there was Kaya Dene Whitaker, just 7 months old, a baby, sleeping in her crib on the night everything fell apart. Brooke was raising all 4 of them on her own, after separating from her partner. She was working. She was pushing forward. She was doing everything a mother is supposed to do. Then Raymond Johnson came into her life. It was sometime after his release from prison in 2005. He was charming at first, the way dangerous people often are. But that warmth did not last long. The relationship quickly turned dark. Johnson became physically abusive. He stalked her. He threatened to kill her on more than 10 documented occasions. 10 times. Documented. In April 2007, Brooke did what she was supposed to do. She filed a protective order against him, a legal barrier between her children and the man threatening their lives. Brooke did everything right. She filed the order. She tried to protect her children. What happened next is impossible to believe. Her eldest daughter, Logan Kleck, later spoke at Johnson's clemency hearing. Her words were quiet, but devastating. Executing him will not give me my mom or sister back. What it will do is finally stop him from continuing to hurt us.
Birthdays, graduations, weddings, pregnancies, births, and grandchildren are just a very small portion of what my mom has missed out on.
Brooke's mother, Andrew Whitaker, spent 18 years waiting for justice. She never got to see it. Andra died of a heart attack 18 months before the execution.
And I feel that Raymond Johnson is the reason that my older sister isn't here as well. Because of the stress and anxiety he caused her for over 17 years. She died of a heart attack.
4 children lost a mother. 3 of them lost a baby sister. And a grandmother died waiting for justice. Now let's talk about Raymond Eugene Johnson. Because nobody becomes a killer overnight. Johnson was born on March 26, 1974. He grew up in the Oklahoma City and Tulsa area. Working class background. No notable career on record, To most people around him, he was just an ordinary man living an ordinary life. But the first sign of who Raymond Johnson really was came early. September 11th, 1995. Johnson was 21 years old. He was in the company of 25-year-old Clarence Ray Oliver in Oklahoma City when the two men got into an argument. What started as a dispute quickly turned deadly. Johnson pulled out a gun and threatened to shoot Oliver. Oliver, fearing for his life, jumped into his car and tried to drive away. Johnson fired through the passenger side window. Oliver's car crashed into a nearby ditch. His body was found the following day. 2 weeks later, detectives questioned Johnson. He was arrested shortly after. In the trial that followed, he pleaded guilty to manslaughter and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He served only 10. By 2005, he was out on parole. Prison records noted anger management failures during his time behind bars, but none of that stopped the system from releasing him. After parole, Johnson relocated to Tulsa. He presented himself as a reformed man, a changed man. That is when he found Brooke Whitaker. The red flags were all there. A prior killing, documented anger issues, and once he entered Brooke's life, a rapid escalation of abuse, stalking, and threats. Court records show he threatened to kill her on more than 10 occasions. He surveilled her home. He monitored her every move. Oklahoma Attorney General Gentner Drummond later said it plainly. Raymond Johnson is a heinous murderer who violently attacked and tortured Brooke Whitaker before ultimately setting her and her infant daughter on fire. At his clemency hearing, Johnson said, "It's a horrible crime. My worst moments of life, my crime doesn't define who I am." The courts disagreed. So did the victim's family. So did 5 parole board members. Raymond Johnson did not snap. This was not a moment of madness. What happened on June 23, 2007 was the end result of a long, slow, deliberate buildup. And there were warning signs every step of the way. Shortly after the relationship began, Johnson became physically violent toward Brooke. He showed up at her home uninvited. He monitored her movements. He watched who she spoke to, who she spent time with, and who came near her. The relationship had turned into something closer to a prison than a romance. He threatened to kill her. Not once, not twice, more than 10 times. Documented. Brooke confided in her family. She told them she was afraid. The people who loved her could see what was coming and they were powerless to stop it. In April 2007, Brooke took action. She filed a restraining order against Johnson. It was a brave step, a necessary step, a paper shield against a violent man. But on May 21, 2007, that shield disappeared. Neither Brooke nor Johnson attended the scheduled court hearing. The order was dropped. That dropped restraining order would prove to be a fatal mistake, one the system can never take back. With the order gone, Johnson had no legal barrier standing between him and Brooke. Through June 2007, his behavior grew worse. Court records indicate he continued to contact her. He was unemployed, he was resentful, he was obsessed. Brooke's family remembers her fear in those final weeks. They saw it in her eyes, they heard it in her voice. Her aunt, Angie Short, later said words that are difficult to forget. "There is no doubt in my mind that he would have murdered them all." By June 23, 2007, Raymond Johnson had made his decision. All that remained was the execution of it, and he was stone-cold sober when he carried it out. This was not a crime of intoxication. It was deliberate, it was calculated, and it was merciless. In many true crime cases, there is a web of people to untangle. Accomplices, co-conspirators, someone who drove the car, or made the call. Not here. Raymond Johnson acted entirely alone. No partner, no hired hand, no one whispering instructions in his ear. Just one man who made a decision and carried it out step by step. Court records show that Johnson did not arrive at Brooke's home by accident that night. He came with intent. What followed was not a spontaneous explosion of rage. It was a sequence, a calculated, methodical sequence. He found a claw hammer. He used it. When that was done, he walked to the backyard tool shed and retrieved a gas can. He did not panic. He did not hesitate. He located a dish towel to use as a fire starter. step by step, each action leading to the next. Johnson himself confirmed this sequence when he spoke to police after his arrest. Argument, hammer, gasoline, fire. Then he walked out the front door and fled on foot. He had already thought about what came next. He discarded evidence along the way. He was arrested later that same day in Coweta, Oklahoma, and extradited back to Tulsa. There was no mastermind network, no hired killer, just one man, a hammer, and a gas can, and a decision to make sure no one survived to testify. What Johnson did next, after Brooke was already down, is the detail that will stay with you long after this video ends. Johnson entered the home. An argument broke out between him and Brooke. According to Johnson's own confession to police, Brooke pushed him and grabbed a knife during the confrontation. Johnson then reached for a claw hammer. He struck her in the head. Once, twice, 3 times, 4, 5, 6. Court records confirm that Brooke's skull was fractured. She had more than 20 lacerations on her face and scalp. The damage was severe, and yet Brooke Whitaker was still alive. She was conscious, she could speak, and she used every breath she had left to beg for her children. "Call 911. Let my mom come get baby Kia. Think of my children." Those were her words, documented in the Oklahoma Attorney General's clemency records. A mother, bleeding on the floor of her own home, not begging for herself, begging for her baby. Johnson said nothing. He walked out of the room, went to the backyard tool shed, and came back with a gas can. He poured gasoline on Brooke. Still alive, still begging, he poured gasoline through the house. Then he walked to the bedroom, where 7-month-old Kia lay sleeping, and poured gasoline there too. He picked up a dish towel, lit it on fire, and threw it at Brooke. Then he walked out the front door and left. Firefighters arrived to find the home engulfed in flames. Brooke was pulled out barely alive and rushed to Hillcrest Medical Center in Tulsa. She died from her head injuries and smoke inhalation. Baby Kaya died from severe burns, 7 months old. Both bodies were so severely damaged that family members were unable to view them. Angie Short told the Clemency Board, "I cannot stop thinking about the fear and pain Brooke and Kaya experienced before they died." First Assistant Attorney General Amy Ely addressed the Clemency Board directly. Johnson made the deliberate decision to kill Brooke and her infant in a way that inflicted maximum suffering. Johnson could have let the baby live without increasing the risk he'd be caught. Instead, Johnson left Kaya to die in flames. 2 lives, a mother and her baby, taken in the most savage way imaginable. And Raymond Johnson walked out into the Tulsa morning like nothing had happened. Raymond Johnson walked away from that burning house without calling 911, without looking back, without a single attempt to get help for the woman he had just beaten and set on fire, or for the 7-month-old baby he had left to burn. He fled on foot. As he moved through Tulsa in the early morning hours, he discarded his bloody clothing. He was already thinking about what came next. An arrest warrant was issued for Raymond Johnson shortly after the discovery of the crime. Law enforcement moved quickly. Johnson was located and arrested later that same day in Coweta, Oklahoma. He was extradited back to Tulsa within hours. At the Tulsa Police Department, Johnson gave his account. He told investigators that Brooke had pushed him and grabbed a knife. He said he grabbed the hammer in response. He admitted to striking her and to pouring the gasoline. According to the arrest report, Johnson admitted to both slayings, but the way he told it, he was reacting, defending himself. Prosecutors would later take that story apart piece by piece. Brooke's mother, Andra Whitaker, was notified of her daughter's death. She was devastated. By all accounts, she never truly recovered. Brooke's 3 surviving children, ages 7, 5, and 3, lost their mother and their baby sister in a single night. The Tulsa Police Department took over the scene on the morning of June 23, 2007. What they found was not a mystery. It was a crime scene that told its own story, loudly and clearly. The home was badly damaged by fire. Arson investigators confirmed accelerant trails running through the house. The gas can from the backyard tool shed was recovered. The claw hammer was recovered. The bloody clothing Johnson had discarded as he fled was also recovered. Witnesses in the neighborhood placed Johnson at the scene. He had no alibi, none. He was arrested the same day in Coweta, Oklahoma, with nothing to offer investigators except his own version of events. And that version was already on record. Johnson had admitted to striking Brooke with the hammer. He had admitted to pouring the gasoline. His confession was partially self-incriminating, but he framed everything as a reaction, not a plan. The autopsy results removed any remaining doubt. Brooke's skull was fractured. She had more than 20 lacerations on her face and scalp. Smoke inhalation had finished what the hammer started. Baby Kia's cause of death was severe burns. Johnson was formally charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of arson. His defense team began building their case around diminished capacity, a history of abuse, and claims of bipolar disorder. But jail psychologists who evaluated Johnson found no acute mental episodes. What they noted instead were narcissistic traits. This was not a case that required years of detective work. The evidence was overwhelming. The confession was on record. What followed was a legal process that would take nearly 2 decades to reach its conclusion. There was no cold case file on Raymond Johnson, no years of dead ends, no unsolved mystery gathering dust on a detective's desk. The breakthrough in this case was Johnson himself. He was extradited from Kuwait to Tulsa and formally charged on the same day as the murders, June 23, 2007. His defense later argued that his arrest was illegal and that his confession had been coerced by police. Both arguments were rejected by the courts. Raymond Johnson did not need to be hunted down. He did not need a decade of cold case work. He told police what he did. The evidence confirmed it. All that remained was justice. And that would take 19 years. Jury selection began in June 2009, nearly 2 years after the murders. Prosecutors made their position clear from the start. They were seeking the death penalty on both murder counts. Johnson was found guilty on all counts. 2 counts of first-degree murder, death sentence on each. 1 count of arson, life imprisonment. Johnson offered no statement after the verdict. The victim's family welcomed it. Then came the appeals. Multiple filings, illegal arrest, coerced confession, ineffective counsel, including a claim that his trial lawyer conceded his guilt without his permission. Every single appeal was rejected. In November 2019, the United States Supreme Court denied his final appeal, clearing the path for an execution date. On July 1, 2022, the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals set execution dates for 25 death row inmates. Johnson's initial date was May 2, 2024. It was postponed after Attorney General Gentner Drummond requested 60 days between executions instead of 30 to ease the burden on Department of Corrections personnel. On February 12, 2026, following the execution of Kendrick Simpson, Drummond filed a new motion. On February 25th, the court granted it, setting May 14, 2026 as Johnson's execution date. On April 8, 2026, the Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board denied clemency. The vote was 5-0. 19 years of appeals. Every court said the same thing. Guilty, death, no mercy. After his conviction in 2009, Raymond Eugene Johnson was transferred to Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAlester and placed on death row. He would spend approximately 17 years there. During that time, Johnson worked with a prison pastor. He mentored fellow inmates. By the time his clemency hearing arrived, his supporters were presenting him as a changed man, a man of faith, a man of remorse. On April 8, 2026, Johnson appeared before the Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board via video link. He was tearful. "It's a horrible crime, my worst moments of life. There's no versions of that story, just the horrible truth. My crime doesn't define who I am. That defines a moment I deeply regret." He added, "I apologize. No excuses, no justifications. A sincere apology." On the morning of May 14, 2026, Raymond Johnson ate his last meal, a 12-piece boneless chicken meal, a pint of gizzards, a side of fried pickles, 4 packets of hot sauce, and 4 packets of ranch dressing. At 10 o'clock in the morning Central Time, he was strapped to a gurney inside the death chamber at Oklahoma State Penitentiary. His spiritual advisor, Kurt Borgman, was present and read scripture aloud during the execution. Johnson spoke his final words directly to the family of Brooke and Kaya. "To Brooke and Kaya and your family, I want to apologize for my actions and the pain I caused you. I hope people can speak your names without my name attached to it. I hurt you. One day, I hope you can forgive me." A tear rolled from Johnson's left eye as Borgman began to read. 6 minutes after the first drug was administered, a doctor entered the room and declared Johnson unconscious. Oklahoma's 3-drug protocol, midazolam, vecuronium bromide, and potassium chloride, was carried out in full. The execution lasted approximately 11 minutes. At 10:12 in the morning, Raymond Eugene Johnson was pronounced dead. He was the 11th person executed in the United States in 2026 and the second in Oklahoma. Brooke Whitaker's 4 surviving children grew up without their mother. They grew up without their baby sister. They grew up carrying a weight no child should ever have to carry. Logan Kleck, the eldest, became the voice of her family. She submitted a letter to the clemency board that said everything. Executing him will not give me my mom or sister back. What it will do is finally stop him from continuing to hurt us. Logan chose not to witness the execution. Brooke's mother, Andra Whitaker, spent years fighting for justice. She endured the hearings, the appeals, and the delays. When Johnson's original execution date of May 2, 2024 was postponed, Andra did not survive to see the rescheduled date. She died approximately 5 months after that postponement. Brooke laughed until she cried. She hugged until it hurt. She deserved a lifetime. Kia deserved a first birthday. Neither got it. Tell us in the comments, what moment in this story hit you hardest? Was it Brooke's final words? Baby Kia? Andra dying before seeing justice? Johnson's last words in the death chamber? Let us know. And if this story moved you, subscribe. Because we will never stop telling the stories of those who can no longer speak for themselves.